Hello, and welcome to Writer's Block. I'm your host, Adelina. Let's find your story. How to start a story. Now, what I mean by start a story, I mean like start the beginning of your story, your intro, whatever you're doing. Not so we're past the stage of you should already have your story map or your beat sheet or your idea log, whatever you have that you mapped out for yourself. You can find more story mapping tips on my Instagram, Adelina Zach Author, if you feel so, or I could have another podcast episode about it. I don't know. But starting your story is starting writing your first draft of your story, your intro, even if you're past your first draft and you still are really not liking your intro, it's a very normal thing as an author. Not knowing how to start your story is a very normal thing as an author, a writer, whatever. Like it's a very normal thing. Especially when you're world building for the first time. This is a brand new story. You're not writing based off a pre-existing world, pre-existing characters that are already developed, whether you developed them or whether they were developed for you. Um, like one of my first writing pieces that I mentioned is that I wrote a spin-off show to Breaking Bad. I've written the pilot. I'm still continuing to write it for fun because I love it. But those characters in that world was pre-existing. That was the first ever writing piece that I did, and though that world, those characters are already pre-existing for me. Like some people who do musicals about past world events, about people like Six the musical and Hamilton. Granted, those musicals you have to kind of make the storyline, the music about the time period, but Aaron Burr, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, they were real people that you can just research and then just write down some things that you want to like references you want to make in the song. Obviously you still have to compose the song, you still have to maybe write lines, whatever, but um it's still like you're the six wives of I think King Henry, those were real people. You're making songs about their life, something that was already pre-existing that you're making and turning into a new idea. Yoink and twist. Um, but the biggest thing, especially if you're an author or a screenwriter, is your hook. What are you going to hook your reader with? That is your reader or your watcher, whatever, or the person who's reading through your script, the publisher or the director, the company who's reading through your script, your book, whatever. What is going to hook them? And now, depending on your genre, your hook is going to look different. The, like if you're writing a like TV show about, it's like a sitcom kind of TV show, your hook is going to look different than someone who's writing a TV show that's about fantasy, or a fantasy book is going to look different than a romance book. It's really depends on knowing your genre and knowing your audience, your engagement, and the mood of the story that you want to portray. If you want it to be more of a kind of sad fantasy or sad like kind of um, horror kind of um, book that you're instilling, you want the reader to feel sad or you want the reader to feel scared, that is going to depend on your hook. My prologue, which is my hook to my book. Yeah, that rhymed. But my prologue that I have written is about um something that happened like 17,000 years ago that lets the reader know, okay, this event from 17,000 years ago is still affecting what is happening now. That detail is super important. You want to have one of the most important things, one of the things that is going to drive your story to be the prologue of your book, or um your hook for whatever, like, think about, your hook for your essay that they wanted to write you middle school, right, they wanted you to write middle school, high school, like that first sentence is your hook in your paragraph, and you want that first whole, like prologue, chapter, preface, whatever, scene, to be that hook. Instead of it being one sentence, it is going to be a whole scene or a whole chapter of the sorts that you want to keep your reader engaged in. Because, when we look at, I mean, honestly, if we talk about iPad kids, Gen Alpha, all of these, even like younger Gen Z, which I technically am categorized in, and I am at fault of this too. But um, attention span with TikTok and with Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, short form content is really huge and is been making, attention spans a lot lower. Like a bunch of these kids, I went to go see a musical yesterday, and there was quite a few younger kids that made it through the musical, but there was a family that was sitting in front of me. They had two younger kids, and they whatever, like, left during intermission, and then didn't see them come back and sit down for act 2. So, like, these kids can't even sit through a musical, which is kind of crazy, especially because it was Shrek. I went to go see Shrek the musical. Love Shrek the musical, which is one of the more entertaining musicals that is out there. So, like, when you when when, like, you have these kids that are just watching short form content, Coco Melon, kind of whatever. Like, I'm trying to, like, think of things that, like, young kids will be watching that I didn't watch. Like, when you talk like short form content, like, even like um on Disney Plus. I don't know if they have it on, like, they stream it on Disney Channel, but they have like the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse shorts, the Bluey shorts. Even like episodes of Bluey are 9 minutes long. They're like 9-10 minutes long for one episode, and usually when they're streamed on TV and not on like a streaming service, so like you're on the like cable TV. But when you're on cable, they usually put two episodes together, and that's how kind of SpongeBob is too. But like they put two episodes together usually, and then when you're just streaming it, it's just 10-minute episodes. It's shorter episodes, and usually like kids' TV shows aren't super long. Like, you're only gonna hold a toddler's attention for so long until they start fucking crying and whining to their mommy. But when like, even then, like, episodes of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse that I'd watch would be like 20 minutes when I was younger. Um, and it's just one of those things where, like, you just see content getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So this is basically just a long-winded way of saying, you're going to want to engage your reader right at the beginning for them to want to keep reading, especially if you're catering towards a younger audience with young adults, well, even like younger than young adult. If you want to write more of a kids kind of book. I don't know what. I'm trying to think of a book that would maybe fall under that category. That's not exactly young adult, but could be considered young adult. I don't know. I mostly read young adult books. So, but something catered towards, like, I guess, like that in between of like Percy Jackson. That's a really good example. Percy Jackson isn't like is categorized in young adult, but like it could also, like, younger kids are okay reading Percy Jackson, or I think there was a series called Spirit Animals that I read, or like Warrior Cats. Warrior Cats is a good one, or like Animorphs, something like that, where um like it could be categorized as young adult, but it's not really like covering topics that are a little bit more meant for older kids, um rather than like someone who was like 8 can pick up like a series of unfortunate events or Percy Jackson or Animorphs or like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, um, Warrior Cats, someone who's like 7, 8, 9, whatever, like within that age range, can pick up that book if that's at their reading level, and it would still make more sense. Now, a series of unfortunate events is definitely a little bit more young adult. I read the entirety of a series of unfortunate events when I was like 9, 10. And even before that, like I started reading it when I was like 7, 8, really. Um, and that's it covers a little bit more kind of rougher topics, but it's still topics that like even if you're like 7, 8, like you could still kind of understand. And at that time that I was reading them too, the series of unfortunate events TV show came out as well, so that was really cool. I really enjoyed it at the time. I'm sure if I rewatched it now, I'd probably enjoy it less, but at the time, it was good. So, but yeah, stuff like that where like if you're writing, like just knowing your audience, especially if you're writing to somewhere like kids within that age range is your kind of like target audience per se. I mean, like obviously like adults can still pick up those books and read them and they're still great, like but when you're really thinking of like who you want as your target audience, the main people that are probably gonna be picking it up, um, just knowing the engagement level that you're going to have from them and just making sure like when you're writing your beginning, you just knowing where your story's gonna go again before like you sit down to write your story. Not everyone can be pantsers like um, Stephen King, but some people who are, I respect the people who are pantsers. I can't do that. I can't. That's definitely not something that I am able to do. But just knowing your outline or like just knowing where you want to go after your teaser, like just like knowing where your story wants to go before you write your teaser is or your prologue, whatever. I'm saying teaser because that's what I'm gonna get into right now is for TV shows and movies, especially TV shows. And I've read like there's movie scripts where like they have teasers and stuff. Like everything kind of does, but movies it's more so of the first scene is kind of taken as a teaser or just something like important, like your main villain is introduced, like in the newest the Batman movies with Paul Dano and Robert Pattinson. The first scene you have like this kind of like you hear like this really heavy breathing and stuff, so it's like you're immediately like the audience is uncomfortable with what is was happening with this heavy breathing that's going on and you're looking through it's very clear that you're looking through the eyes of someone, the way that the camera is moving into the mayor's home and then the mayor is killed and then you that's how you meet the Riddler. It's a very very good opening. I love it very much. I love that movie. I love that movie so much. It's very great. Love DC, but when you have an opening like that, like you meet your villain, like that is a very much like this is how like he has the duct tape and whatever, and then you come back, you visit the scene later, when the Batman shows up. Oh, what? Oh my God, it's the Batman! Whoa, no way! And you see how the crime scene was left. You saw it happen, and then you're introduced to the Riddler and all of this. So yeah, it's a really great opening. If you haven't seen the Batman, I totally recommend watching it. It is great. I'm a sucker for some of the Batman movies. They're really great. A lot of people rave about The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is really good, but yeah, I really like how they did this newest Batman movie. It's really great. I think it's just bringing in some of that like original kind of style into back into Batman. And I like how they did it as well, like with Wednesday, they really brought back like the show Wednesday, the animated Adams Family movies. They brought back kind of what the original characters looked like from the comic strips and stuff. So, but when it comes to TV, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, love them so much. I love you, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. But when you look at those, each of those episodes has a teaser, and in Better Call Saul, it's very interesting. So I'll get to that in a minute. But in Breaking Bad, there is the teaser in every episode, which is like foreshadows something that's going to happen either later in the episode, later in the season. The last season, season 5, season 6. I don't remember how many seasons of Breaking Bad are there. I'm blanking. Oh my god, I'm blanking. It's okay. But in the last season of Breaking Bad, the first episode we see the teaser. It's Walter driving back. It's his birthday, and he goes to, I think it's a Denny's, and he does like the bacon thing that his wife used to do for him, whatever. And then he buys this machine gun, and then he drives off with it, and then we don't see that until the very last episode of the entire series, which is such a good ending. If I had it my way, Breaking Bad would never end. If I had it my way, Breaking Bad would have never have ended. But in Better Call Saul, we see the teasers in Better Call Saul are very interesting. Usually, it's either, for most of the series, up until you get to the last kind of few episodes, last season-ish. Oh my god, yawning. But what you see, is either like the black and white kind of, which is post Breaking Bad, which is post Saul after Breaking Bad. It's usually either that, or you see throughout the series, which I think is a very interesting way to do it, where the teasers were following this girl and her mom who were having issues with each other. Her mom would like forget her at practice, or like would make her daughter steal something for her from the store, and then she got caught one of the times, I think, and it was just very much this weird power dynamic between this mom and her daughter, and I think it was really interesting way to kind of symbolize the power dynamic there. But so that is one way to do your teasers. Is kind of like, it was a very interesting way to do it for Better Call Saul, and I really liked it. So that's one way to do a teaser, and other way, like Breaking Bad, foreshadowing into the episode. There's the one where it was the plane crash. I think was it was the teaser. Oh my god, yawning. Oh my goodness gracious. It was that plane crash episode that was the teaser, and then we actually find out what happened. It was Jane's dad who went back to work, whatever. I don't want to spoil too much. If you haven't seen Breaking Bad, go watch it, because I might I honestly might spoil things with that. Well, I kind of already have spoiled things without knowing, but not super terribly. I'll try my best not to like spoil any major details, but yeah, I just love Breaking Bad. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's really good. And Better Call Saul. Go watch them. Go do it. But yeah, so for TV and movie, teasers, and then for books, prologues. Biggest thing is prologues. One of my favorite prologues that I've ever read. Not written. Hello. The best prologue I've ever written is for the one book that I've ever written, which is the one that I am working on right now. But, well, I guess it's not true. It's not the first book I've ever written. It's the first prologue that I've ever written, though, that I can remember. But the best, I guess not the best, most favorite prologue that I've ever read that I'm thinking of right now is From Light Lark by Alex Astor. It's a great prologue. And it was kind of my inspiration for my book too, for my prologue for my book. It was it sets the scene very well over like um through like the entire it's basically it sets the entire premise of the story are these curses that they have to break, and then the centennial, all of this. I'm not remembering it very well. I wish I had the book, but I don't feel like going and grabbing it right now. But that was yeah, just a great. I'm so yawning. Yawning today. I'm so yawning. Yes. But that is just a great prologue in general, and I love it very much. And it very very much inspired me to um not to write mine, how to write mine. I took a good amount from Light Lark. I know I have my document of like books that inspired me this stuff, but one of them is Light Lark and Nightbane. They're both very very good books. I cannot wait for Skyshade. That is coming out in a few days, and I pre-ordered it, so I'm very excited. Um, so I should have that in my hands in a week or two. So very 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 excited to read it, and I'll definitely do a book review on it um, at some point on the podcast or on my blog or on my Instagram. I don't know. It'll be somewhere. I don't know, but it'll be somewhere. But the prologue is very important because, especially if it's your, I don't feel like, I feel like if it's a series, you don't write a prologue for all of your books unless it's like, oh, like, okay, it was the first book, and then now I'm making a, like, hello. I'm yawning a lot. You're making a kind of a book that's set before it, and I'm totally forgetting the name for it. I'm forgetting the name for it. I'm very sleepy today. Don't know why. Mm. But it's probably because the time change just happened. Clock went forward. But yeah, like when I don't even know what I'm saying. Hello. But unless you're making a book that's set before the other book, I don't think really a prologue is necessary if you're making it's the second book, just want to continue the story. But with a prologue, it's very important for your first book. Not every book will have a prologue, and that's okay. You don't have to have a prologue. Prologues are definitely more common in fantasy, horror, dystopian, mystery kind of novels. If you're writing, even in like um, some mystery books, like they don't have a prologue. Even horror books, like some of them don't have a prologue. Romance books usually don't have a prologue. Um, but most of, if not all, fantasy series, like the first book, has a prologue, unless you're kind of looking at the Grishaverse, which I don't know if I think Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone both have prologues. I'm not sure though, but like King of Scars doesn't have a prologue. Like the Grishaverse, I mean, is very 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 big, very 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 big. It spans I think 8 books. It's a lot. Um, but I think maybe only Shadow and Bone has a prologue. Even then, I don't know if it does. I don't remember. So your book doesn't have to have a prologue, but if it helps if it does, especially if it's like a fantasy or dystopian kind of novel. So, and even if you don't have a prologue, your first chapter should do basically the same thing. It should just include a little bit more information, but yawning, yawn. Introducing your protagonist and or the issue being portrayed. Usually, your prologue does one or the other. your if you're using your first chapter as kind of like your prologue, um, then it'll do both. But usually when you have a prologue, you either introduce your character or your issue being portrayed. Usually it's the issue being portrayed and then the character. That's how my story is. That's how a good amount of stories do it, especially like if it's like, oh, like um I don't remember if the Hunger Games has a prologue, but like um the prologue for the Hunger Games, if it yawn, if it doesn't have one, I don't remember if it does, but be like introducing the games, why the games are happening, the people rebelled against the Capitol and now the games are happening and then today's and then and so like every is it every year, every 4 years? I don't remember. I think it is every year. I don't remember. Oops, I don't remember. But um yeah, the Hunger Games, and then it would like the first chapter is like Katniss Everdeen and today's the reaping, and then blah 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 blah, and then she gets put in the games. Ah. If I spoiled that for you, you are definitely not cultured. So sorry if I spoiled that for you. If I did, well, that's just kind of stupid. I feel like that was that was that was bound to happen anyways. If you haven't seen the Hunger Games, whoopsies. But especially if you're writing a book, even with a screenplay, the first 30 pages are the most important, because here's the thing: when you're pitching it to someone, even with your screenplay, the first 30 pages are the most important, period. Because the first 30 pages are what the publisher, the person you're selling your story to, like the first 30 pages are what they're going to read, is what they're going to mostly base the story off of. Um, and I mean, for 30 pages, if you're writing, that's a half hour of script that they just read, because if you're writing a script, because if you haven't heard about this in screenwriting, usually a page equals a minute. And with story writing, if you have 30, like I'm talking about like full, like piece of paper, printer paper kind of paper, Google Doc kind of paper, those are the pages I'm talking about. So that will usually equal a minute, depending on how much action you have, how much dialogue you have. If you just have a page of dialogue, just straight dialogue in a scene, it's probably going to be faster than a minute. But if it's all action, it's probably going to be longer than a minute. So, but within those first 30 pages, that's a tongue twister. First 30 pages, those are the most important. Each for us, story, each big printer paper piece page equals 2 pages, usually 2 book pages is what it translates to. So that's 60 pages of a book or 30 minutes of a play, a um, TV show, a movie, whatever. So that's basically how much time or how much pages they're usually giving you when you go to publish or to um, sell your story to a a company. But that's usually how much they'll read, which means that those first 30 pages are the most important. And also, even readers say, when you're reading a book, get past the first 30 pages. And if you can get past the first 30 pages, you're going to be able to get past the rest of the book. But so if you make your first 30 pages not like the most interesting, but if you keep them engaging enough, people are going to want to continue reading your book. Publishers, um, companies are more likely to take your story if your first 30 pages are the most interesting, um, especially if you give a lot of visual appeal in your story. It is yeah, very much um you know, if you create a lot of imagery in your story, you know, visually, like, I'm trying to find the best way to word this. I had it in my head and now it's gone. But just creating a lot of visuals with your story that someone can imagine, especially when it comes to screenwriting. Now, when with screenwriting, you want to create those visuals in as least amount of words as possible, because you know some other team is going to make the set do whatever, you know. So I mean, and obviously your vision, you're giving, when you're giving your script away, you're giving the vision to the director. So you want to translate your vision as much to the director or to your audience as possible, especially when you have a book, you know, you're able to be more detailed with your story, which you're going to want to create, especially within those first 30 pages. You're going to want to create the first 30 pages is when you're going to really want to just build up your world so that people stay engaged, you know. And obviously, like, you can still build after the first 30 pages, otherwise I feel like it wouldn't be a book. um, but you know, you're going to want to put some of your most important details within the first 30 pages. um, and you know, like, when it comes to starting and writing your story, it can be very difficult, but if you can paint imagery for yourself and what you want to do, it is very much viable. It is very much easy. After, I mean, feel like after you start really getting into your story, the more easy it becomes. Um and once you do it multiple times, it'll be like clockwork. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions that you want me to answer, either here or on my Instagram or my blog, then there's a Google Sheet down in the description. Feel free to take a look at the website, which is where the blog is, and there's a contact form, as well as if you would like to join my newsletter, then you get access to weekly emails from me. And then if you respond to those, I will try my best to get back to you as well. And you get access to a Discord with a bunch of other writers where you can share your stuff and whatnot. So yeah. And my link tree is down there as well. If you want to follow me on social medias, it's Adelina Zach, or on my Instagram, it's Adelina Zach Author, which I post on my Instagram every Monday, Wednesday, Friday with um, just writing tips, just like some of my favorite, like, books, TV shows, movies, suggestions, you know, answering questions that you guys have. So yeah, and that's it. See you next time. Bye.